Would you like to fly in my beautiful balloon? Wasn't that a beautiful graphic? Well done to the clever people I work with. But I've been transfixed between laughter and tears as a giant barrage balloon, a weather balloon, sailed across the entire continental North America, across all of Canada, across all of the United States, with nobody knowing how to bring it down. Nobody could pop the balloon. We were told that it was a Chinese spying balloon. Although given China has literally thousands of satellites crisscrossing the world and more than capable without being seen by any of us of doing all the spying that they need to do, and given that, well, according to what they tell us, China's already spying on all of us in our refrigerators, in our light bulbs, through Huawei and TikTok and every other portal you can imagine, why would they need to sail a giant white balloon visible to the naked eye by every one of the people of Canada and the United States, across whom it sailed rather beautifully, actually, in the early spring blue sky? What's it all about, Alfie, as Michael Caine famously said? Well, the truth is, we still don't know. And the fact that we don't know probably means that it was all an expensive hoax. Joe Biden went on national television to commend the Top Gun for bursting a big, giant balloon. After several unsuccessful attempts, I may add, though he didn't, he hailed this great feat of the Air Force in bringing down this dangerous balloon. But if it was dangerous, why was it still sailing over the United States days after the danger of it was first alerted by, amongst others, Joe Biden? He said they were going to bring it down, and they did. 3 whole days and nights after he said they were going to bring it down. So was it a clear and present danger to the safety of the Republic? Or was it a weather balloon that was blown off course? Was it even Chinese? There are reports today, and I pray to God that they are true, that it was a Canadian balloon which drifted off course into the United States of America because of highly unusual wind patterns. I don't know, but then neither do you. And the fact that you don't know, as I said, means it's entirely likely that the whole thing was a hoax, because having brought it down, they are now, one presumes, unless they really are a banana republic, in possession of its remains. They are already in possession of what was inside it, what was attached to it. Their electronics people must have known what it was transmitting and to where. But the fact that none of us have been told any of this makes me think the whole thing may have been a lark, may even have been literally a hoax. One of these things that the gamers do, swatting, they call it, bringing in this case, the United States Air Force to bring down this barrage balloon. Mind you, the United States has absolutely no history of lying in the public arena. It's 20 years ago today since Colin Powell, unfathomably known in the United States as Colin Powell, brought a little glass vial into the United Nations Security Council. He held it, oh, so theatrically. He spoke so devastatingly powerfully that the material in this little vial, making me wonder at the time, I hope he doesn't drop it and break it and wipe out the Security Council and everyone in the city of New York. Everything in this little glass vial, he said, could wipe out humanity across a simply enormous radius. But it was all a lie. The weapons that he was referring to did not exist. There were no nuclear weapons in Iraq. There were no chemical weapons in Iraq. There were no biological weapons in Iraq, and had not been for many years previously. Now, you can say what you like about Colin Powell, but I presume that he wasn't an idiot. I therefore presume that he knew that he was lying to the world in pursuit of a predetermined decision to invade and occupy an Arab Muslim country in the apparent belief that it would make everything better, that it would solve the problems of the Middle East and become the entire Muslim Ummah of 2 billion people. You could say that if he genuinely believed that, he was an idiot. If he didn't believe it but said it anyway, he was a knave. But fool or knave, Colin Powell had his acolytes. You can imagine, you may remember where you were when you saw this theatrical presentation. I was in the British Parliament. And because I, almost uniquely in Britain, knew for certain that this was a pack of lies, I say uniquely because I was the only person traveling to Iraq from Britain at that time. The Foreign Office and Downing Street refused to see me when I returned from every trip to Iraq in the onrush to war. I told them every time I came back, I want to brief you on what I found there, but they never once accepted it. And the reason was little Jack Straw, the member of the Church of England Synod, no less. A good Christian man who so fell in love with Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice. As a matter of fact, Jack's wife began to get suspicious about Jack's love for Condoleezza Rice, not knowing that, well, Condoleezza wasn't exactly in the same market as Jack Straw. At least one presumes not, but how can one tell nowadays? So besotted was our Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw, that he began to mimic exactly these theatrical devices. He used to hold up vials too. He wore for the first time, hopefully the last in recorded British history, a badge in Parliament everywhere that he went with the British and American flags conjoined. He made exactly the same false claims as did Tony Blair, though Jack did it more theatrically more often, that Iraq was in possession of a mountain of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons capability, and it was all a lie. Now, nobody thinks much about Jack anymore. Colin is no longer with us, I presume burning in the seventh circle of hell, which is the destination of all warmongering liars. But Jack is still around, though he never got his seat in the House of Lords, because Channel 4 television, with a camera up their jumper, captured them in a fake Chinese takeaway scam, in which they literally recruited him on camera to sell himself like a common prostitute to any Chinese company, although it was Channel 4 television that were the Chinese company. Why do I dwell upon it? Well, partly because the anniversary of the 20th anniversary of this awesome presentation by Colin Powell reawakened all the feelings of rage in me that I felt at the time. Because I and my first guest this evening, Officer on Deck Scott Ritter, we knew it was a lie. Didn't think it was a lie, suspect it was a lie. We knew that it was a lie. And I tell you, to watch your leaders lying on television about a matter as grave as war, a war which cost the lives of 1 million people in Iraq and counting, and spilled ISIS and Al-Qaeda all across the world. You've no idea the rage that reawakens in one. So they were lying about the Iraq war, but you think they're telling the truth about the Ukraine war? I'm really putting this bluntly to you. You know that they lied to you about the Iraq war. You know that they lied to you about the Libyan war. But you still think they're telling you the truth about the Ukraine war? What's wrong with you? That's like an abused, deceived wife who answers Groucho Marx's famous question, who are you going to believe, me or the evidence of your own lying eyes? You've seen their lying eyes, up close and personal. I'm reminding you of it now again. How can you believe a single word that these same people are telling you about a different war? Well, it's not often that I pray in aid the calculations of the Israeli security service, MOSSAD. And I'm not praying it in aid as gospel truth even this evening. But a remarkable document broken by the Eurasianist on Twitter earlier this evening didn't just come to my attention. It jumped off the page and hit me, albeit the original is written in Turkish. It is the calculation of MOSSAD that the Ukrainian armed forces are in fact, for practical purposes, now a defeated force, and that Western Ukraine now, for practical purposes, is no longer a functioning state, and that the NATO-Russia war being fought on Ukrainian territory is what we ought to call it now. According to the MOSSAD, Ukraine has lost more than 150,000 men dead. According to the MOSSAD, Ukraine has lost 257,000 men wounded. According to the MOSSAD, more than 50 British and Americans have been killed in the bunkers with the Azov and the Kraken battalions, and more than 5,000 foreign fighters have been killed in the fighting. And the inference of the MOSSAD report clearly is that when Bakhmut falls, as fall it will, if it is not evacuated by the gnomic Zelensky, that will, militarily speaking, be the end for the Western Ukrainian armed forces. Now, this is significant coming from MOSSAD for a number of reasons. First of all, love them or hate them, you'd have to concede they're a pretty sharp outfit and operation. But secondly, more importantly than that, Israel has just made a sharp turn in favor of Zelensky. Many people, like our good friend Gideon Levy, the preeminent Israeli journalist, thought that Netanyahu being back would tilt Israeli policy towards Moscow, but the opposite has happened. Netanyahu gave an interview this week in which he claimed that he was already helping Ukraine in all kinds of ways that he wasn't prepared to talk about. He shrugged when asked if he was prepared to be a mediator between these two countries, with both of which Israel maintains close, if complicated, relations. There are hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians in Israel. There are millions of Russians in Israel. There are millions of Israelis coming and going on a daily basis into both Russia and Ukraine. You might have thought, therefore, that he was a standout pick for a mediator, but he showed no enthusiasm for being so, and the reason is clear. That Joe Biden, and the NATO leadership have made the decision that they have no wish for a mediator. That notwithstanding what happens to how many Ukrainians, they are not prepared to allow this war to come to a negotiated end. So Netanyahu is the prime minister, but his security service has effectively stated today that Ukraine is a defeated military force and de facto no longer exists as an independent country. We'll be talking to both Garland Nixon and to the aforementioned officer Scott Ritter about both the balloon and the Ukraine. But I want to close with the subject we'll be discussing with our third guest this evening, an up-and-coming star, I promise you, Jamie Wright. We'll be talking about what this balloon means for China. You know, Karl Marx said, "A cloud no bigger than a man's hand can be a harbinger of great storms to come." Is that balloon, that cloud, a harbinger of a great storm to come between the United States and China? You'll find out if you stay tuned for the next 2 hours with me and the mother of all talk shows.